To do this, choose the location for one corner and set one post on that spot. This should be the higher corner. For this first house, I would recommend that you set the posts well into the ground and tamp them in so that you know they will not move. Dig the post hole 300 to 600 millimeters deep and use a good-sized log butt for your post. It should be long enough to allow a little material to be cut off for final leveling. Otherwise, in most cases, we would keep the bottom of the log work as close to the ground as possible. Our demonstration layout will measure 5 meters by 8 meters. Drive a small nail at the center of this stump and measure 8 meters to locate the center of the next stump. Dig the hole for the second stump, but make this hole large enough in diameter that the post can be shifted to an accurate location. When this second post is sitting upright and 8 meters center to center from the first, fill the hole and tamp the fill in solidly. Tamping is best done with a small pole or smooth 2x4 about 6 feet long. The fill material should be placed in small lifts, say 3 or 4 inches at a time, and then tamped. The third post will need a squared corner, and this will be located 5 meters from the first post and diagonally 10.295 meters from the second post. Okay. The position of the fourth post can be located by measurement, or again located with the diagonal measurement. Any intermediate supports can be located from a string line that is on the center line of the wall. Stretch the cord tight, then tie a piece of ribbon or string to it. The ribbon can be slid to an accurate position. Alternately, posts can be fastened to a heavy pad that can be set on top of the ground and moved into the desired location. The 8-meter wall should have at least one support halfway along, and if there are any doors or partitions to be cut in, these should also be supported. The next job will be to level the posts. For this you can use a water level or a builder's transit level. If you own or rent a builder's level, you will know how to set it up. A water level can be a length of clear hose that has been filled with, of course, water. Tape the hose to a short length of 1 by 2 at each end. Fill the hose with water and plug the ends. Secure one end to the first post and the other end to a second post. Remove the plugs and wait for the water level to stabilize. Mark your intended height on the first post, then measure from this mark to the water line. Do this in reverse at the other end. That is, mark in the height of the water, then mark the post height by measuring from the water line. Move the end of the hose to the third post and repeat the process for this and any other location. Cut the post off about 2 inches above the height mark and square the top of the post for a distance of 4 to 6 inches below the mark. You will most likely have to replace your height marks. Then draw a level line around the 4 sides of the post. This line should be placed accurately, scored, then cut. It is a good idea to do a final check on the post heights. They should be finished fairly close. Next, locate the center lines for the walls. Again, make a small mark in the center of the first post. Then measure 8 meters to the center of the second post. Use an ink line or a string line through these marks to establish the center of the first wall. Obtain the third corner by again using the diagonal measurement. When you have all 4 corners located, again check the diagonals. They should be correct to within 5 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch. Drop plumb lines down from the ends of these center lines and cut the corners in with a handsaw in order that these lines will not be lost. You are now ready to place the first logs. For the first half log, choose a straight log that is slightly larger than your average sized log. These pieces will go across the ends of the building. They need only be 200 millimeters or 8 inches longer than the wall. Place this log on skids or blocks and roll it until any bow is down, then dog it in place. Snap a center line on the log. If the log is very straight, you can measure the center at the ends. Otherwise, judge the center and place the line by weight rather than the measured center. From the center line, drop plumb lines at each end of the log. If you are very sure that you can control the saw, place another line 10 millimeters on either side of this center line. If you are new to this, place these lines 15 millimeters on either side. Snap 2 more lines on the top of the log, then roll it over and place similar lines on the other side. These outside lines will be your final finish lines, and you should not touch them with the saw. With the cut lines rolled down flat, start your cut at the corner near you. Then pivot the saw to the other side. Cut only on one side at a time and watch your cut line. Use your largest saw to rip the log in two. The saw should be sharp, and if the teeth are filed to a little less than the standard 35 degrees, the saw will produce a narrower cut. Dog the saw and pivot it around for the off side. Pull the saw toward yourself and guide it on the near side. With practice, this sequence can become one motion, without pause or loss of efficiency, if you wish to obtain the best speed and make the smoothest cut. When the cut is complete, roll the halves until the flat side is up, level, and block them in place. With the saw, brush down to the finish line. Work on the side near you, at a shallow angle to the other side. Then repeat this operation from the opposite side. You should end up with a slight crown in the center. This can be removed with a third pass. Finish right to the line with a large flat planer if you have one. Otherwise, use a saw, a slick, or a hand plane. Place a center line on the new flat side and draw end lines at right angles to the center line and 5 meters apart. It is best to measure to the center of the log, then 2.5 meters each way. Extend these short lines a little way up the side of the log, so that they can be seen when the flat side has been rolled down. Cut in a drip break. If you are going to put flashing into this cut, make the cut 100 millimeters or 4 inches to the outside of the center line. If you are not going to use flashing, make the cut 125 millimeters or 5 inches outside the center line. This is for an 8-inch foundation wall. If the foundation wall is built otherwise, you can make the appropriate adjustments. If there is any bow in the log, this bow should be placed to the outside of the wall and the lines drawn appropriately. These pieces should now be positioned on the stumps. The center line should match those that you originally cut into the stumps, and these logs should be placed gently so that nothing is shifted. Once in place, this log may be temporarily nailed to the stump to help prevent any movement when the next log is placed. For a blind dovetail, nail from underneath and away from the log end. We will use a blind dovetail notch. This option is detailed in tape number 5, Other Notches, Part 1. The next logs, or 3/4 sill logs, will be prepared in much the same way, except this log will have an overhang and will have to be longer. For our building, this log should be 9 to 9.5 meters long, depending on the log end design that you have chosen. Place these 2 logs on skids with the bow down. Snap the center lines and draw the plumb lines in the usual way. Draw a second plumb line equal distance from the first at each end of the log. This second line will be at a distance from the first plumb line that will give you a width of about 200 millimeters or 8 inches at the top end of the log. The location of this line will depend on log size and will have to be placed accordingly. Also, these logs will be specific to one side of the building, so with the bow down, you will draw the second plumb line on the right side of the center line for one log, and on the left side of the center line for the second log. With these lines in place, cut the flat as we did with the first log. When this is completed, snap center lines on the flat and place end lines and cut the drip break. Before you place these second 3/4 sill logs on the building, you can bring the end lines up to the top of the original half log. This can be accomplished in a number of ways, but the more accurately it is done, the better. Place the 3/4 log so that the center lines intersect. Then wedge these until the bottom flats are level. Check the diagonals again on the top of the logs to be sure that nothing has been shifted. Then scribe, lay out, and cut the blind dovetail notches. There are several other corner configurations that can be used in this location. You might use a regular saddle notch with the half log ends protruding. This start has become an industry standard. Here the half logs are left longer and scarfed before they are placed on the temporary foundation. The 3/4 sill logs are then placed on the lines, leveled, and notched the same as a standard wall log. The building may then proceed right along. Be very careful that nothing gets shifted out of place, because these logs can be accidentally moved, up at least until the next round has been placed. A lock notch here will have the same appearance, but it will not be as easily shifted out of place. Another way has been to cut the log over the foundation and leave the round end beyond the foundation. This simply requires 2 logs to do the work of 1, and very little is gained by way of appearance. All of these options are structurally sound. Finally, you will need to determine the center line on the next pair of logs. To prepare for this, measure a known distance back from the end line on each wall and place a mark. 500 millimeters is a good distance. This will provide a reference for wall alignment at any time, especially when you get to the plate log and the roof system. Your building has now been started in a way that has become accepted as an industry standard. There are other acceptable ways to start a building. If your house is to be placed on posts or piles rather than a concrete foundation, the first log can be a full-length sill log. These logs could be left round, but the function would be better served if they were flatted on the bottom and a drip break cut in. This precaution would allow for a possible foundation at some future date. The next two logs are then simply notched over these two logs at the adjacent walls. Additional logs can be notched across these sills to serve as beams or floor joists. These additional joists should be blind notched to the sills to avoid the intrusion of water, which would be very harmful at this level of the building. Also, by this same means, a low foundation wall can be built up to a useful height, then floor joists added and the main floor continued at a higher level. A third way may appeal to those who wish to work exclusively by hand. The first two logs can be chosen smaller than the average size and hewn flat on the bottom to approximate the height of a regular half log. When these logs have been prepared and placed on the stumps or foundation, you can then use a blind notch or a saddle notch and continue the building as we did the first time. Now let's add a second log to the end wall so that the building is truly on its way up. Choose a log that will have near the right amount of wood remaining after the notches have been cut. It is also necessary to retain control of the wall height and alignment as the building goes up. This process should start right here. The top of the second log should be near parallel with the top of the foundation, and the same height above the foundation at each side or end of the building. Measure the height of the wall at each end or side. Then choose a target height that you would like to achieve for the next round. At the top end of the half log and the top end of the 3/4 log, choose a butt size that will be notched slightly less than halfway down. On the other side of the building, your half log will be under the butt end of the 3/4 log, and this end of your second log should be notched slightly more than halfway down. This same formula can be applied all the way up the building. Measure the wall height, measure the notch height, and choose the next log accordingly. The uneven numbered rounds should be higher at the butt end, and the even numbered rounds near level on top. You are now well started and in a good position to complete the walls of your house.